How's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of Guitar Guidance. In this episode, we're going to keep elaborating a little bit more on the E major scale and talk about the several modes. So what you have in front of you here are scale degrees 1 through 8. And we're going to begin with 1. And so every scale degree is associated with a particular mode. And scale degree 1 is associated with the Ionian mode. Another example would be scale degree 2. Scale degree 2 is associated with the Dorian mode. So let's take a step away from the staff for a moment and just think abstractly about the notes and scale degrees. So one thing to keep in mind is that when you're in a major scale or minor scale, that when you get to 8, it means the same thing as scale degree 1, but it is what we call an octave higher. So let's begin with the first mode on the first scale degree in E major, which starts on E. And for the example, we're going to use the 2nd fret E on the D string. The second mode, on scale degree 2, which we've already discussed as being the Dorian mode, begins on F sharp. This F sharp is going to be on the 4th fret of your D string. The third mode on the 3rd scale degree is known as the Phrygian mode. In E major, this begins on G sharp, and we're going to use the 1st fret of your G string to begin this scale. The 4th mode on the 4th scale degree is the Lydian mode, and in E major this begins on A. We're going to start on the 2nd fret of your G string for this scale. And keep in mind, we've been using the open B string, but for this scale, we're going to use the 4th fret B. The 5th mode, beginning on the 5th scale degree, is known as the Mixolydian mode. In E major, this begins on B, and we're going to start on the 4th fret of your G string for this scale. So the 6th mode on the 6th scale degree is known as the Aeolian mode. This is also called the natural minor mode. This begins on the C sharp and is going to be on the 6th fret of your G string. So the seventh mode, beginning on the seventh scale degree, is called the Locrian mode. In E major, this scale begins on D sharp, and we're going to use the 8th fret of our G string. One thing to keep in mind is that all of these modes are defined by their relationship of half steps and whole steps, just like we discussed in the E major scale in the beginning of the series. Another thing to keep in mind is that these scales are not limited to their position. They can be moved around and they are not limited to one octave. Here is the E major scale up an octave.